Call a meeting to order.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. Moran? Here. Ms. Koenig? Here. Ms. Redden? Here. Ms. Allen? Here. Mrs. Lamacchia? Here. Mr. Hendon?
Here. All right, we'll start off with the Eva Jane Romaine Coombe Director's Report. Paula.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. We're going to kick things off with Mr. David Schnee, who is down here at the end of the table. I'll do a quick introduction, and then he's going to do a bit of a presentation for us. So David is the Director of Planning and Design with Group 4, Architecture, Research, and Planning, and the Principal on our Facilities Master Plan project. And he's here to provide an FMP update and discuss plans for this summer's extensive community engagement. David and his team, many of whom are behind me here, previously have talked to us. They presented in August of 2018, at which time the planning principles for our FMP process, maximizing access, transparency, customer focus, operational sustainability, industry-leading excellence, diversity and inclusion, those were established by the board last August. Group 4 has been working with community and staff groups to gather input for our FMP during the first half of this year, including doing a couple of multi-day in-person visits earlier this year in February and March. So David, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing the wonderful San Francisco style weather to Cincinnati. And we will put your presentation up here. Hopefully I can get going on this. Is this the correct presentation version of it? I don't know. Yes, yes.
Control L to
Control L to go
go full screen.
full screen. Okay. Okay, all right.
Works well, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Paula, thank you, trustees, for having us here today. And again, this is where it's a real privilege to be working with the Cincinnati Public Library, Cincinnati and Hamilton County. And you guys are a 5-star library, and you guys deserve 5-star facilities. And they're a little bit behind in that regards, and your community's entrusted you with your leadership with a significant funding opportunity to make those improvements happening. You guys have started ramping up already, making some of the most critical repairs. And the question is, what's next? And how is it all going to look when it's done? A plan is an essential roadmap for that, and we're really thrilled to be working with you on this process to put out that map together. So our members of our team, many of them are here today. So Group 4, myself and one of my business partners, Jill Ayers. So we've been doing large library system master planning across the country for decades now, and have had you guys in our sites for a long time, and really thrilled to be working with you. Champlin, who is one of your esteemed local architects, Jay Darenthal, our principal peer, they're our local partner, and they designed some of your best and forward-looking libraries. Design Impact, they're our local community engagement folks, nonprofit, and added newest member of the team, Susan Kent, here, wave Susan. She is a former library director from Minneapolis, New York, LAPL. We've collaborated on many projects. She has been a leader in the American Library Association Institute for the Future of the Library, amongst other folks. She's a tremendous thought leader, and her expertise on how to handle some of the unique challenges of this large library and its collections, and how to deal with 40 plus branches. Her perspectives are super helpful. And another longtime collaborator, Carson Block, who looks at the libraries are more than just the bricks and mortar here. It's the online experience and all the digital experiences, which is part of that. So we have a very comprehensive team here and working with you. So the steps that we had outlined last year that you guys was optional. Did you want just to sit around this board table and come up with a map for the future, or did you want to go through a step-by-step process? And you, given those choices, you said you really wanted to have a well-thought-out process of looking at the vision, doing evaluations, understanding how the whole system works together, and then come up with recommendations. And most importantly, pinning that with lots of internal and external input and engagement. And so we're just a little shy of halfway through that here. And we'll talk about the input we've been getting so far. So we had last month 2 back-to-back strategic vision workshops, both one for staff and one for community partners. Had over 140 participants, which is a record for us in doing these things, even in Houston, Texas, which was another collaboration we did with this team. We didn't have that many folks, and the folks are really passionate supporters of the library and are really giving a lot of great information for it. We had 2 wonderful guest speakers. I loved Renan's business position title. She's Vice President of Customer Experience, Engagement, and Fun. So you have another world-class institution like the library at the Cincinnati Zoo, and she really inspired PLCH staff with some very progressive approaches to inclusion here. We also had Tim Cambridge, a longtime collaborator, also with this Group 4 team with Susan Kent and Carson Block up the road, Dayton Metro, where we have experience being the design leads for their $187 million bond program. And he was really, had a lot of customized information from folks been down this path already doing bond program implementation here. And some of his key points: investing in under-resourced communities, right-sizing the collection, expanding space for people and programs, building sustainable facilities, hosting partners in the library, and consolidate low-performing branches. We'll talk about, this is a little bit jumpy here. Can you, I'm going to, Paul, ask you to.
Okay, you just look at me.
So one of the things is, as you know, you have a very diverse legacy of facilities. We'll talk more about that. And in Dayton, they have the same thing. Many beloved branches, some with historic value, others sort of just small, funky leftovers of other things. But even a small, crappy rental space in a strip mall is beloved here, and it can be very challenging to figure out what to do with them. And they really can be very challenging for how they provide service for it. And they really looked at it comprehensively. Paul?
Oh, sure.
And also, for them, they were looking at what's the role of the books. We discussed with you, and we'll do again just for this whole room, how many of you are reading books? Hands up. And still in this day and age, oh, some people, okay, not everybody, but that's true. And how many of you are also reading in some other format, electronically, Kindles on your phone or other pieces? So we're in this poly format here. We still love books. We are dedicated to books being the future of the library. The question is in what role and what capacity, where the libraries of the past were just book warehouses here. And so Dayton, they said they were drowning in books, and they right-sized their collection through a very thoughtful process. So in the vision workshops, together we came up with these priorities, which are really helping us guide our emerging recommendations. So the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County in 2030 will embrace diversity, adapt and stay relevant, which you've been doing a lot, democratize access, empower customers and engage the community, be a community destination, provide safe, welcoming spaces, offer flexible spaces and services, maintain accessible and sustainable facilities, and build partnerships. So there were hundreds of ideas that came out. These were the prioritized ones. This is a roadmap I take anywhere for it. And so this is to get from so many community partners these priorities. Great, Paula. Okay, we know as part of this effort that we can't get the privilege of meeting all folks to take a day off from work and to come to evening meetings and such. So working with Design Impact, we've been having a series of focus groups to get the input of low-income residents, parents with young children, young professionals, people experiencing homelessness, returning citizens, those are people coming out of incarceration, teens, special focus groups with the African American community, refugees, entrepreneurs. We're looking also to still have additional outreach, make sure we get the Latinx community and other folks too, so this is an ongoing process. Next slide. So some of the themes that came out of the focus groups, again, echoing what we heard from the vision workshop, physical space. We really need upgraded facilities, amenities people really talk about, and we've experienced a lot. One of the things that diversity is a goal of ours, we've done libraries that have been very busy and seem a modest size, but they don't get the whole spectrum of the community visiting because they're so small. Some people sort of claim it as their own, like there's a usual customer, so I'm used to this knitting group that's here, or this particular community group comes there. We expanded a library in the Bay Area once and tripled its size, and all of a sudden the pastor comes and tells his congregation, oh, there's space for all of us. now. And then all of a sudden, rather than it being just two ethnicities represented, the full spectrum of the community is represented because there was room for everybody there. So space is a theme that comes through. People talking about how important the program services are. Always, it's always a challenge. The library does so much communicating its messages. Next slide. And again, fostering a more equitable library experience. This is really, everyone feels the library is theirs, like it's their place, and they really want to make sure, and I think you as a library institution do a great job, and it's not something you can check the box and say you've done. It's something that has to be central to all of our work. Okay, next slide. So we're about to engage in the San Francisco history, the Summer of Love. This is a summer of engagement that we're going to have here. Paula is on a one-upsmanship with Tim Cambridge, who had meetings in every single one of his branches. Susan Kent said she did 5. She was at LA, did 63 libraries. 62, and had she went through 2 bond programs there and other ones, and had, sorry Paula, she went to up to 5 meetings per location for all of that. But
I'm impressed.
but she's tough.
I'm coming for you, but come on.
So she's planning on being there, and we have lots of library staff here. We've got staff training tomorrow for that, and we're going to have a standard format for those, but customized content to each location. What's important to know is that having one meeting in each branch location isn't, as Susan was experienced, it's not the end of the conversation. It's just the beginning of the conversation, especially as you're proposing to do work there, just as we've been doing with Price Hill. It's the beginning of the conversation, so a lot more, and this is specifically how we're doing the transparency, diversity, and inclusion goals that you've had. And so, so we're in the first phase was vision. So from what we've heard from all of this input, this is in draft form. This is not poetic yet, but it sort of puts down what we as a consultant team are saying is that we want to provide access to the best, past, current, and next library services, resources, and places. Like, we're not throwing out the old. We have amazing stuff going on here, but we're being future oriented here. And we're looking at that through a network of complementary libraries. A flagship main, we're putting that word flagship in front of it. New term here, full service 21st century destination libraries. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is. And then tailored services and branch libraries. This is draft form. This may look very different next time we come. We want to get your input for it here. So we'll go into what that starts looking about, the draft vision, and we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so again, we've shown your facilities, and again, this image is, the pictures are in proportion to the area and size of your libraries, with the main library, north and south, being half of your total area. Your larger libraries, 10 to 16,000 square feet. The ones with the pink shading to it are your current regional libraries, and then your smaller libraries. Next slide. And so color coding it here, your squares are your larger regional libraries. The circles are the branch libraries in proportion to their sizes, and of course the main library. So we see that the larger libraries tend to be out of the core or adjacent areas. We'll have to understand what are the challenges that creates or opportunities. Next slide. So of course, part of this work in the board mandate a year and a half ago already was to repurpose the main. We're just starting that with listening sessions that are beginning this trip. And just to tell you, you're in good company. Cities across the U.S. are reimagining and reinventing and reinvesting in their main libraries. We are thrilled that some library do the master plan and say, skip the main. It's too big, or it's too expensive, or it's too big a challenge. Here, it's part of this effort too. We're not going to come up with design plans for it, but we're going to look at a high level, what are some of the opportunities here. So it's a great opportunity for you. So next slide, please. So here's Jill Ayers, my business partner, who owns 2 horses and a Chihuahua. Likes to have this slide, and we present, and there's a whole bit, but there's size matters here, and small branches are the least economical expansion strategy. Some people would say, hey, we have a neighborhood model, and you have branches in many neighborhoods, but still probably about a quarter of the established main neighborhoods in the city and in the region. So one strategy could be to build more, and you ask the average person in the street or your average council member to say, hey, give me some more branch libraries, will you please? You have 40, what's wrong with 80? And in some sort of fantasy world, that would be great. But looking to have what we call destination libraries to have better service and be more sustainable. So we'll talk about, next slide please. And so today you have these regionals, and we brought in Jay Derenthal's, Champlin's Reading Library, which isn't identified as a regional, but it's of that size. And it's really a good example of what a 21st century library is today, with flexible teen, children's, and adult areas. Teen spaces are not present in so many of your smaller libraries. A meeting room, although it's pretty small, there's actually 3 group study rooms, the slide's wrong, a maker space, and other features, drive-up, book drop, parking, single point of service. It's really an excellent example of that. Next slide. And so what is a 21st century destination model? And using one of the examples from Dayton is, Reading's great, it's just more is better, like a small, tiny supermarket versus a bigger one. Like if you can get more of those resources in places, you can operate a building that's 3 times the size with practically the same staffing complement. And you can provide more hours and such for it too. So just a little teaser for what this idea is. Next slide, please. So then the question is, what about all the little branches? You see on the rest, you have over half of your locations are under 10,000 square feet. And all of those 20 locations or 21 locations add up to only 12% of your area. So it's just a lot of energy, resources, time is coming there. And there's a real question about how much of its overall performance and service it has. So part of our work too is trying to understand how to best use those, how and what do they work. And right now, there isn't a conceptual model for them other than they're just a small library, just like a big one, but they're smaller and have just a little bit less of everything. And when you try to be everything to everyone in a small package, you don't necessarily do any of it that well. So next slide, please. So just bringing some of the information up and where you sit with your nearest 15 peers, but this is by size and population. So we have Cuyahoga on the left of this, and Columbus right next door, and others you could look at. Next slide, please. And so then looking at the number of locations you have. So you having 41 locations here puts you at the top of the chart, and I'm not too sure if that's necessarily something to be proud of. It could be, and it's really for you to guide us to it, but we think there may be limitations that would be better by right-sizing the number. So next slide, please. So one of the analyses that we're doing is looking at each of the, how well each location is providing service and what is the condition of these according to this four square matrix, where in the bottom left is poor service and poor condition, to the upper right, good service and good condition. Next slide, please. So we've done an analysis, we try to plot where all of your libraries fall. You wish everything was in the upper right quadrant, and you want to basically, in this master plan, we want to move everyone who should move up and to the right. Better service and better conditions for it. It's worth saying, and I don't hear overall, that there's a lot of work to be done. And if I were to guess that you've got many times more work to do over the next couple of decades than your current funding allows. Yes?
Can I ask you what your definition of poor service is?
We'll go into that in just a second. It's a excellent question.
Go ahead.
I have another slide for it in a second, so yeah. And so let's see, maybe I might have reduced it from this slideshow. So poor service has to do with a series of metrics. It's the ability, how many hours you have, how much resources you have there in terms of the variety of services that are available, the collection size, technology, different appropriate spaces for age, different ages, and also how well economically you're providing it. We look at measures of collections per square foot and staff per square foot per hour. There's a whole series of measures that we're looking at for that. And so I just, where my earlier thought was just saying that part of our planning mandate is not just how to spend the current issue 3 funding revenue, but to understand what needs may be left for the future beyond that. So we don't have to fully constrain that yet. And how we balance all that will come later in the process. As we said, we want to move everyone to the good service and good condition locations. Next slide, please. Okay, so an example of a evaluation here is the site evaluation, and Madisonville will be our first community listening session, which happens tomorrow night. Is that right?
Yes.
And so it's centrally located, good residential area. There's no dedicated off-street parking. It's got good access for buses, and it's landlocked. There's no room for expansion. Next slide, please. And so you look at where it is in its neighborhood. The colored polygons are the new Wetzel and Madison development that's happening, which is good to know how it fits in its context and where it's located. Next slide, please. And so basically it's a 3-room place. It lists itself as a 10,000 or I believe square foot library, but the basement is counted in that, so it's really more like a 7,000 square foot, and it's not ADA accessible. Next slide. And so we talk about the condition. So it's a 2-story building. The upper level is the primary service level. Lower level has a meeting room, which is good, saying it's maybe about 7,000 square foot usable. Built in 25, no major renovations. Building systems all require upgrades, not ADA accessible. And due to the age, the building may need to be evaluated for historical status. It doesn't have to be a Carnegie to be eligible for that, and it's just part of the due diligence to understand if you're working with buildings, as you know so much from the Price Hill work, what's involved there. And so from that, we take these various factors and give it a composite score that goes on to the evaluation matrix. Next slide, please. Okay, so here for the Mrs. Lamakia, this is a better detail of the evaluation for service. So looking at the collections and the reading study areas, limited collection size. So how often can someone say, oh, there's a particular book I want, I'm just going to come to there isn't a particular book I want. If I just come into the library, will I find a book I want? Either something I have in mind, or will I find something of my interest? In such a small collection size, the chances are very, very small. That's why we have the lovely hold system. But so what's the role of the size of the collection there? Adult and children's rooms only, no teen. Huge desk fills the marketplace. Very few computers, limited space to bring your own. The staffing challenge is there. So that gives how we add these up, looking at program attendance and collection density and circulation, visits. Visits very important too. Just how well is it? Are people using it? Is a big part of our next part of the presentation. So moving on. So then this is where Madisonville shows up in that matrix, a little bit low on the service and a little bit low on the condition side there, and wanting to move it forward to the next slide. And I know I'm going very quick on this thing. This is we're spending 3 hours on this with staff in the next session here. But so in that lower left square, we want to move to the upper right. And so the questions we ask are, how do we, for improving the service and condition, can the building or site accommodate a desired service model? Like, what is the service model we want there? Since it's landlocked, we say, well, what's the feasibility and potential impact of a focused service model? What can we, and we're not saying that everything has to become these destination library or regional, but let's figure out what is the purpose from that it can excel at there. So is there a focused service model that would be there? Or is there an opportunity or a reason to expand to increase service and impact? And if you do want to expand it, as we look regionally for it, consider relocation. Look for a site that can accommodate a larger building. And also, if you want to look at the return on investment, some projects are easy to do, and others are going to be very expensive, and you have to see for all the money it takes for it, is you getting the right bang for your buck for it. So these are questions we're just asking now. We don't have answers to those questions yet. Next slide, please. So one of the other is rather than looking at each library individually, is we try to look at it system-wide. And one of the great tools we had in working with a local Cincinnati partner was to do customer mapping, and the first part of that was to look at a geographic gap analysis. And this map shows that there is excellent geographic coverage. So if someone says, well, my neighborhood's not being served, well, the people in every neighborhood are being served. Like the facts are there. The proof's on the ground. People everywhere, on almost every street in this city and county, are using your libraries, as all of your stats show that. So you don't need new libraries to fill in gaps. Okay, next slide, please. So then the old approach was one about unique service areas for each library. It's been this way for a century here. Each library would have a unique area. Orange Boy, Ohio-based research firm that we've collaborated with many times, they have a methodology that then says, well, rather than just geographically looking at only the land and street patterns and residential patterns, let's see what people, how they vote with their feet, and call an area of dominant influence. You probably had presentations in the past on their work here. And so they size their service areas based on who's coming to them or not. But that still is though people going to parochial, my library, where in reality people have my libraries. People in your libraries in your community are using multiple libraries. And so, next slide please. And so part of this, looking at the small branches, is testing the neighborhood branch concept. And so if we believed that this was really a good model, that small libraries are really, like as we said, people are all feel great about them. All things being equal, people would go to the one that's closest to their home. And if you're lucky to have a branch library near your home, that should be serving your neighborhood really well. And that's, the other people can say, how come they get one and I don't get one? But the map of use pattern should resemble those branch service areas. But for the smallest libraries, the majority of branch neighbors go to other locations to meet their needs. So what it's saying there in the next slide will show, you can advance it. Oh, okay, well, we have others. So this shows how people are, so if you're in the vicinity of a branch library, it's just not meeting your needs that much. You're more likely to go to another library also, or exclusively to meet your needs. And so that's a little bit disappointing if you really wanted the branch service model. So here, based on the data, we were looking at what are the sort of flows of how people and what sort of geographically they're traveling. We're going to be working with staff and our local architects and planners to understand their rich social, geographic layers here. We want to be very sensitive to that. Next slide, please. So the neighborhood concept, what the analysis suggests are that customers are mobile. Customers choose which library to visit based on other factors besides proximity to their home, and customers use libraries as networks. And what this means for planning is that services can be strategically located within networks. Not all branches need to offer the same services. That's one of the takeaways we have here. So one of the things we're going to be doing looking forward is not creating new actual customer regions, but we're going to be looking at sort of planning zones, because there's just a lot of mouths to feed. A lot of it's taken us a while to sort of get a hold of an understanding all of your 40 children here. And so by organizing them and understanding them by these geographic zones, it will show it is a planning tool. But what we want to say is that, and as we go from neighborhood to neighborhood and branch library, we're going to say if your, draw the circle around you. Wherever you are, you've got 4 or 5 libraries around you. That's your network. Doesn't matter whether you're southeast, northeast. Everyone is customized. You know where your nearest Starbucks is for your day. This will have the sort of that same approach to it. Next slide, please. So the next steps here, so we're very early in this process. We're going to finish and confirm these analyses. And then we're going to start looking at identifying improvement options, which will include renovations, expansions. Some expansions or renovations will be better to be replacements in their existing locations. Some of them really should be relocated, and we're going to start looking at opportunities for consolidations. And so I think if you just asked anybody, they'd say, well, I thought we were just doing renovations, like just anybody on the street. And so part of our going into the community now is to understand why we're looking beyond that. That is more than just being committed to the decisions from as much as 100 years ago. But so much has changed, and that can look at it holistically and generate a lot of community support for the broader range. And from a community perspective, say, what's going to happen to my library? Well, what's going to happen to your libraries? Not everyone's going to get in this first issue 3 funded bid. Not everyone's nearest library is going to be impacted, but from this concept of an individual network of libraries, you can say everyone's libraries that they use in this issue 3 will be improved. You'll have libraries that will be improved that you use. Like it will be the rare person who only uses the one library that's not being touched. And you'll hear from them for sure at the board meeting. but still, that you can say with confidence that the funds that you have and the plan that will emerge will improve everyone's networks across the system. So that was a whirlwind for it, and happy to go back and forth. And Mrs. Lamacchia, you get points for asking a question there while as I was racing this through, and would happy to go back anywhere in here. And how are we doing? Does it seem like the right sort of foundation, and is this emerging vision seem like where we should be going?
Quite extensive study, you beginning. Very good.
Yeah.
Any other questions for David? He's heading over to the tower room to begin his 3 days of talking with everyone. So, but I promised him we would field any questions, and if you follow up questions, we talk to David all the time. Happy to talk to him.
I'll have another question then. You're going to be having all these meetings at the various branches.
Yes.
Do you want a board member at all of those?
All's a big statement. It would be great to have you guys participate as much as you're capable.
When we get to this strategy report, there's a calendar of everywhere, and I think it would be great for you to come. If you just come to one, we have busy summers, that's great. If you can come to one or two. If we don't have board members at all of them, I am really going to try to be at everyone. So I think it's really good. So far, many of you have come to a couple of the meetings, and I have heard from community members how much they appreciate that. They come up to you and talk to you, and they feel that, they understand we're all really working hard for them. So we can talk about that further. I do know that people do appreciate seeing you, and you can always do a drop-in and leave. Mr. Hendon did a great job of introducing the drive-by. He did the community engagement, the community group. He came in, said hi, welcomed them. So I think just even being present for a quick hello or stopping in is also great. So that full report and that calendar is there. We can look at that and you can let me know. That's a great question. Go ahead. Absolutely, Judge Allen.
What is a destination library? Would you kind of give me a little bit more detail on what that? I'm sure this is a destination library, but there are other ones. So what's
right? So it's
contained in
somewhere between. It's not a main library, which is indeed a destination, and we were calling that flagship to say that you would have super unique services. But some of the amazing makerspace you have here, you have a really small one that is wonderful in the Reading Library, but you could have one that's still maybe double or triple that size. And so I'm trying to find a library that could have all of the 21st century services that you can run efficiently and effectively that would draw people. And so conceptually we're thinking all of those different sort of distributed across the whole county. There might be a handful or more of those bigger full service libraries.
Okay.
Meeting rooms would also be a draw, right?
Yes, meeting rooms are super small and more group study rooms here.
And I think the other thing that is counterintuitive but is so true is this idea that it doesn't cost that much more to operate a large library than a small library. On average, hours and other things sometimes impact that, but the actual cost, I'm looking at Jeff, like the HVAC system at some of our smaller branches costs quite a bit. It's not necessarily more inexpensive. Yeah, if they're not efficient and they have other issues. So that's kind of a leap to make. So when we look at those numbers, you're like, oh my gosh, that must be really expensive. Well, if you really look at what some of our older, smaller locations cost over time, even staffing-wise, you add 1,000 square feet doesn't mean you add another staff person. If you build it correctly, you can see them better, and they might be more efficiently staffed.
Okay. And not 1,000, add 10,000.
Right.
Add
It's always
50,000. Bigger numbers. If you can.
She's warming them up.
Yeah. Any other questions for David? Appreciate that very much. And David's heading over to the tower room, so and your team is going with you. So a bunch
Great.
of people are about to leave. So thank you. Don't take it personally. Thanks, David. Excellent. Okay, we will get back to my report here. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. So just a quick note on the library levies. On May 7th, voters approved all 5 public library issues on the local ballot around Ohio. That exhibit is attached. They are as successful as always, and the average voter approval rating was 74%, which is pretty remarkable. A little bit more on the state news. State budget and legislative activity update. Deliberations on our biannual budget are moving forward in the Ohio Senate. Senators consider what substitute version of the state bill they are going to submit. The House version of the bill included the PLF at 1.68 of the general revenue fund. That's the same that was proposed by the governor. Libraries across Ohio are working with senators to amend the bill to include 1.7% be dedicated to the PLF. Following the Senate's submission of their version of the bill, deliberations will continue with the House and Senate Conference Committee to resolve the budget. We continue to monitor this situation. I think it may go up to the wire this year. We may get one at the end of June or even have it signed officially by the governor early July. So we'll keep you posted on that. The OLC's Legislative Network, of which I'm a member, was invited to hold our May meeting at the governor's residence in Columbus. First Lady Fran DeWine's staff hosted us and provided information on the First Lady and the governor's strong interest in early childhood literacy. Public libraries are, of course, a natural partner for this state and this statewide focus, and the meeting offered the opportunity to highlight all that we do for children across the state. Oops. I've been invited to stand for election for a second term to the Ohio Libraries Council Board of Directors. The election will be held this summer. It's for a 3-year term. I currently do serve on that board and I am a member of the executive committee. Later in June, I'm going to be attending the American Library Association's annual conference in DC. We have several staff attending, and we're going to use that opportunity, of course, for professional development, but we also have a series of meetings scheduled with our vendors who supply our essential services, such as Overdrive, who offer our e-material, III, that's our online catalog, and Biblioteca, who gives us our self-check and our book locker downstairs. Finally, I did want to make a note about organizational culture and staff development. During the first half of this year, I have continued to focus on staff engagement and the visibility of library leadership through weekly videos, some informal coffee classes with staff, and visiting agencies to meet and talk with staff. I'm working with our internal communications folks and with Beth from Strategy to expand and examine additional venues for me and for all of our senior leadership to engage with, listen to, and gather ideas from staff. It's a really important area that requires consistent attention, particularly during this time of leadership transition and the development of our facilities master plan. So just wanted to make you aware that we are keeping staff in the loop and talking to them quite a bit. That is my report, sir.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Strategy Committee.
Okay.
That would be Mrs. Lomacchia.
Right. Okay, well, we just heard about all the community listening sessions that we're going to be having for all the branches. The staff has already voted for what they felt were the 4 most important areas for the library to focus for the next few years: digital literacy skills, tech support, workforce development, meeting people at their point of need, and addressing access equity issues. They also had aging populations, parents, civic participation, language acquisition, etc. You can read it along there. And of course, as they said, tomorrow, along with our library consultant, Susan Kent, who we just met, will lead the conversations with the main library managers about envisioning what to do with the north and south buildings to meet the needs of the community. On May 13th, members of the Board of Trustees and some leadership staff participated in a dinner with the Hamilton County delegation for the Ohio General Assembly. Representatives Denson, Kelly, and Seitz were in attendance, and Senator Thomas was also there. It helped to talk about how our library uses the funds that they provide from Columbus, and they were very interested in hearing about it, and some of them hadn't realized exactly what the library does for the community. So it was a good dinner.
Interested enough to raise it to 1.7%?
We're hoping. We're hoping.
Early on, get it out there.
And since 3 of them were men, they're not as likely as the mothers to take kids to libraries either. So they were learning something new too. The marketing department is leading an effort to revisit the library's brand identity. We're working to identify a local firm to partner on this, and the community and staff engagement that's happening throughout 2019 as part of this FMP project. And it's a good opportunity to learn from the community at what they value most in the library. And all the feedback will be translated into a look and message that resonates with the audiences. And we're going to select a firm by the end of June. This brand identity work is going to occur during the rest of the year with a goal to launch it at the beginning of 2020. The May pop-up activities was a workforce development, which we mentioned in the last board meeting. They engaged a variety of partners, the Cincinnati State, Cincinnati Works Dress for Success, and Hamilton County Veteran Services. The activities such as how to go tips for job interviews, demonstrations of job training resources, resume writing workshops, Q&A sessions, and all of it was provided on a drop-in basis. This allowed the library to shine a light on key resources, as they say, as lynda.com, Treehouse, and My Library Appointment Service. The current pop-up topic was chosen by a survey of Main Library customers, and at the moment it's focusing on mental health and well-being, and it will run to the end of July. The upcoming events and exhibits, we have the Summer Adventure, which began on June 1st. The highlights are the No Theater's Alice in Neverland, which is an interactive literary adventure that encourages critical thinking skills. The Children's Theater, TCT, focusing on bullying and healthy eating. The Bright Star Theater, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. New Leaf's kitchen cooking workshops, providing food support. Several animal educational programs presented by the Great Parks, the Zoo, Newport Aquarium, Wave Foundation, the Cincinnati Herpetological Society, and Raptor, and then Science Matters in America. The pop-up preschool, the Library Foundation has successfully applied for a grant from the Jacob Schmidlap Fund. With these funds, they're going to develop a curriculum for a pop-up preschool at Deer Park in the fall and roll out the initiative to add additional locations in 2020. The book giveaway to children from low-income families, and we're partnering with the Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority and the National Books Foundation Book Rich Environment, and this will go on for the rest of the year. And hopefully they will distribute nearly 30,000 books to children who are living in public housing or underserved communities. And they're distributed at 3 CMHA resident awareness community barbecues in June, July, and August. And the Santa Maria Community Services joined this effort to work with distributing books in Price Hill. The Staff Mark Job Fair with the Employment Agency to host fairs at Deer Park Branch on June 25th and 6th. In July and August, partnering with the Jewish Community Relations Council to host discussions of Yossi Klein Levy's Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor, and it's co-facilitated by a representative from the JCRC. The Metro Partnership has 2 initiatives this summer. In July, Read and Ride will offer monthly library reading recommendations to the commuters. The Addiction Academic Community Forum is partnering with Prevention First and the Hamilton County Heroin Coalition, and the Westwood branch is hosting a forum to discuss the impact of the substance use disorders. And that will be held on July 30th. Celebrating the legacy of Cincinnati Pride from June 15th to August 31st in the atrium. We have memorabilia from past decades that reflect on the milestones and the challenges of our LGBTQ communities. Brian Stevenson is going to be talking for the Mary Stern Lecture Programming, Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption, and The Sun Does Shine, How I Found Life and Freedom on Death Row. The Ohio Innocent Project will host a panel with attorneys and exonerees. And the lecture will be held on October 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Aronoff Center. The tickets are going to go on sale next month? No, 2 months, in August, for $5. The Chinese Railroad Workers Photo Exhibit we have a traveling exhibit commemorating the 150th anniversary of the large number of Chinese workers who came to help build the Transcontinental Railway across North America. I think Stephen Ambrose wrote a book on the Transcontinental Railroad where he had just talked great about the Chinese workers that came and how they got it done. The other thing was under this was the calendar for the library of the different meetings at the branches. And my suggestion is for people to try and get to ones, especially the ones that are near you, and that you can make them and are free on the evenings, so that we at least have somebody from the board at most of them. Okay, that's the end.
Did the idea of a new brand come from our employees, from our customers, from where?
We, from a variety of places, including when we looked back, it's been about 20 or 25 years since we did the red logo, and we sort of thought that since we're out in the community talking to everyone, if we wanted to do any kind of a new brand relaunch, it would be the best use of those community engagement sessions to do that as part of this now. It has been a long time, and if you look at many of the libraries that have launched their facilities, when they start to implement, they tend to do a new brand to signal to everyone we're doing this, and we didn't want to go back and rework it all. So we're trying to get a group to work with us now so that we don't have to schedule additional listening sessions. Molly and I talked yesterday, and I think it's been 20 years?
Yeah, probably a little over 20 years.
Yes.
Since any of the signs have been done and the way the logo.
When did we do that? We started when Kim came?
A couple years after.
Yeah.
After Kim came, so.
And we did all the signs, and when we started to look at it, we went to one presentation where they talked about red had been all the color everybody wanted, and they actually then cited Fifth Third that used to be red, and then went to the blue and the green as they sort of tried to have a different feel in the community and update what was going on. So we know we have a lot going on, and we went back and forth about whether or not now was the time, but on the other hand, we thought, you don't want to rework twice, so we thought we would try and, add this to the list. Why not?
And the signs were part of when we came up with that $54 million number, we had put money in there for all the sign replacement, because we do need to do something with the signs.
Many of them are pink.
Did you have some sign models or samples? I mean, when you said signs, was like, what color do you want, or did you present?
That'll be part of the
Colors.
brand
Yeah, that'll be
strategy.
part of the brand strategy. We decided to not even go down that path yet until we looked at this.
So
we
the
did-
first thing is, should we have a new logo?
Right.
We didn't want to
This is-
replace all of them and then
this
go,
is what-
oh, we want to do something else.
Yeah, that's
It's
what we had.
that one, yeah.
All right, next report is the Development Committee. Mrs. Conan?
All right. For the Library Foundation, the Duke Energy Foundation, the Ruth J. and Charles A. Conway Foundation, the Marge and Charles J. Schott Foundation, the John A. Schroth Family Charitable Trust through the PNC Charitable Trust Grant Review Committee, and Western and Southern Financial Fund have all approved funding to support Summer Adventure 2019. At its May board meeting, the foundation approved funding from its unrestricted endowment draw to support Summer Adventure 2019, the Homework Helper Program, and the Ohio Library Council Conference reception being hosted in Cincinnati. The spring fundraising appeal was underway, and additional grant funding requests have been submitted. Friends of the Public Library, Alexia Loyanich has been named as Executive Director of the Friends of the Public Library. She began volunteering at the warehouse in 2013 and joined the staff as Logistics Director. Her passion for the library, the work of the Friends, and her skills in business leadership will have, her skills in business leadership will help to position the Friends for growth in the coming years. At its May board meeting, the Friends of the Public Library approved its 2019-2020 budget for library program support. The approved allocation is a 5% reduction in overall support from the previous year. The Friends of the Library June sale in Hartwell was June 1st through the 8th. The Friends shop at Maine will move to summer hours beginning June 10th. Hours of operation will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 11 to 5.
Can I say something?
Sure.
If any of you newer board members have never been to one of the Friends library sales, I have what their future ones are for the rest of the year. Probably just pass them around. But I think you should all at least, try and get to one of them at some point to see how all these volunteers work to help support the library.
And if you haven't joined yet, you should join the Friends.
No, if they haven't caught you, yeah.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Betsy. All right, Anderson Township Library Association. The Anderson Township Library Association will host its annual June sale at Nagel Middle School from June 21st through the 23rd. We have a partnership with the Taft Museum of Art. The Taft Museum of Art is showcasing items from the library's collection in its Magic and Melodrama exhibit. To celebrate its longstanding partnership with the library, the board of the Taft is hosting a small gathering on June 12th for library trustees, foundation directors, and senior leaders in the exhibit.
Thank you.
Did the Friends say why there was a 5% reduction?
I think that they have had some changes in staffing with Ann leaving, and they're working on trying to figure that out. Stacy may be able to speak a little more directly to that.
Yeah, they've, I think that there are changes in staffing. They're looking at how they can increase revenues and other ways to grow. They also, we did a little bit of shifting around this year too with grant revenues. So the Friends had been writing some grants and that has shifted over to the foundation now. So all of those things combined has made the reduction.
So is their revenue reduced then? Is that the reason? Okay.
And we haven't heard, Betsy asked me about their initial figures yet, and I hadn't heard.
I don't have any sale figures yet, but
Okay.
I do know that they had 4,000, at least 4,000 people attend the June sale. So
that's good.
they seemed really happy with that, particularly given all of the construction that's happening right in front of the warehouse.
Yes.
So,
But they have the parking lot that's right across the street,
yes.
which is a big advantage for people to
Eh.
come.
And I know they've been working very hard with their community in Hartwell to grow how they're interacting to get those parking spaces and to try to make the warehouse as accessible as possible.
It was a great sale. I went, bought a bunch of cookbooks, even though I don't cook, so just join the other books I do. They look great, exactly.
Look at the pictures.
I love to look at the pictures.
All right, next report is Operations Committee, Ms. Redden.
Westwood Branch Manager Travis Castleberry. Before his career in libraries, Westwood Branch Manager, yes, Travis Castleberry. Spent over a decade in retail, including jobs as a bookstore manager and butcher. Interesting combination there. He began his library career in 2010 at the Monroe County Public Library while he attended Indiana University. After graduating in 2013, Travis moved to Cincinnati and began working at the Forest Park branch as a children's librarian. The next year, he was promoted to College Hill branch manager. Travis has been in his current position in Westwood for 2 years.
Thank you for having me here. I wanted to talk about the Westwood branch and its relationship.
Travis, if you just stand in front of the microphone so they can pick it up.
Sorry, and its relationship with Westwood Elementary. The Westwood Branch Library has enjoyed a symbiotic relationship with its across-the-street neighbor, Westwood Elementary, for 110 years. From its founding in 1909 until moving to its present location in 1931, the library was located inside the school. Over the years, this close relationship has presented numerous opportunities and challenges. The majority of the branch's programs focus on the influx of school-aged children that enter the branch at 2:15 every school day. In the past year, staff have introduced several new STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math programs to engage the children after school. In addition, the library employs a homework help aide who frequently assists up to 2 full tables of children with their homework assignments. For the last 2 years, the library has offered the students after-school snacks through its partnership with the Children's Hunger Alliance, a popular and needed service that has led to a 166% increase in attendance during the course of this last school year. Having a snack available to after-school kids helps meet the children's nutritional needs and also helps alleviate behavioral issues. The library and school administration is committed to working together as advocates for our younger customers to ensure the branch is accessible for all ages. Thank you.
Travis, now that CPS has bought Mercy High School, you're going to have even more kids.
Yeah, that'll be an influx of teen and school-age children.
No issues there.
But we already have a good relationship with the Montessori school, so I'm looking forward to it.
Do you have a teen section in the branch?
It's quite small, but yes, we do.
And get an influx, should we have to enlarge that?
Yeah.
And the snacks, so that just goes to everybody who comes, whether they,
From 0 to 18.
whoever comes,
Yeah, but I mean, 99% are Westwood Elementary kids.
who
Yeah,
need the snack, okay.
yeah. They certainly enjoy it.
Oh, I'm sure. That's probably why they're there.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
Good job.
Renee Robertson Tecco, Senior Library Services Assistant in the Youth Services Department at the Main Library, has been selected to receive the Baker and Taylor-sponsored Black Caucus of the American Library Support Staff Award. Ms. Tecco has worked for the library system for 25 years and was a founding staff member of Teen Spot in 2008. Some of her notable achievements include helping the teens and tweens create a podcast called Brain Pizza, helping the library create a mock Coretta Scott King Awards event to accompany our mock Caladot Newberry and Prince events, working with rapper Prees to initiate a music program. For those and numerous other accomplishments, Ms. Tecco was honored by BCALA, which serves as an advocate for the development, promotion, and improvement of library services and in resources to the nation's African American community, and provides leadership for the recruitment and professional development of African American librarians. Ms. Tecco will receive the prestigious annual Support Staff Award in person on June 23rd at the American Library Award Annual Conference in Washington, D.C.
Is she here?
We're bringing her in August to talk about the experience, and I do have to note, I hired Renee in the Teen Spot when we opened, and also it is worth noting that Renee used to work in science and technology. So in the old world, she did one thing, and she's just done a great job of adapting and embracing the new world. So kudos to her for a variety of things.
Yeah.
All right, next we have the Facility Finance and Audit Committee report. Mr. Moran.
Okay. We met on May 23rd. Committee members, myself, Mrs. Conan, Ms. Allen were in attendance. In addition, Mr. Hendon and Mr. Macchia was also in attendance, and staff members Paula and Molly. The committee recommends the revision of estimated resources and annual appropriations as shown on the plan there. The increase in appropriations is amount for program support expenditures that were funded through the Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation that was not originally anticipated when the original appropriations were established. The 2018 audit, we suggested we waive the audit meeting, which is almost complete. Library staff is working to complete the comprehensive annual financial report. Currently, auditors expect to issue a clean opinion and clean GAGAS opinion. There are no management letter comments. The auditors will send out a draft opinion. And they'll request a meeting within 5 days of receiving the email. And I think we won't need to do that unless something changes dramatically. Okay, Price Hill Branch Accessibility Project, we recommend approval of a separate allocation of $600,000 outside the project budget to be used for both furniture and activation of outdoor space. In an effort to move to a more flexible arrangement, we plan to explore a variety of furniture options that can be used as a standard as we move through the facility master plan implementation. Because of this new approach, the original budget presented to the board did not include an estimate for furniture and equipment. Additionally, the front lawn of Price Hill Branch presents both opportunities and challenges, including security concerns and accumulation of trash that are unique to the branch. Activation of and changes in the nature of landscape of this front lawn are important to the long-term success of that new facility. Approve the schematic design for Price Hill. It's currently presented, which includes renovation of the current building of just under 6,500 square feet, in addition of 6,000 plus square feet. First floor of approximately 93,025 and second floor approximately 3,250 square feet at a current estimate of $6 million. The addition will provide accessibility on level 1, including routine library services, and accessible second floor meeting space to community comprised of almost 30,000 people. Now, when not in use, the second floor will be not in use and won't need to be supervised. So we now have a one floor plan that the staff can oversee.
That is the concept, absolutely, and we'll have people using the meeting rooms, but we won't have to have people serving them directly. Many of the folks from the Price Hill Project are here, so if we have any questions for them, Kristen, and I think some folks from Messer and the other individuals who have expanded that, you can talk to them if you'd like as well, but they did come to answer any questions.
Thank you. We ask approval to adopt a construction management at risk construction delivery model for Walnut Hills branch accessibility and the Madison Hill branch accessibility. If we're successful, we'll probably use this for a lot of our projects that we move forward. And establish a construction manager at risk committee as follows: Kristen Payne, Robert Hendon, Molly DeFosse, Jeff Guerin, Brent Bonfield, Paula Brem-Hager, and PLCH Capital Project Manager, which we're in the process of hiring. Authorize the bid below and authorize the committee to review the statements of qualifications, select the top 3 firms, interview the top 3 as part of a second step of process while proposals for pricing and technology qualifications are submitted, and make a final recommendation to the board in its August meeting. So that is attached. And then the theft of library property, release the fiscal officer of personal liability related to the theft on April 2nd of a laptop from main library valued at $709.80. Police report has been filed. Library staff has added security steps, checking out the laptops to minimize the risk. And I think we also suggested raising that to $1,500.
Yes,
Okay.
so increase the board reporting threshold to $1,500.
Okay. Compact shelving, you want to talk about that?
Yes,
Did you do this one?
the Ohio checkbook, I think, is we do need.
Okay, authorized library
Oh,
participation in
yeah.
Ohio checkbook for
We can vote.
2018 data being added to the system by the end of 2019, and the data would be updated annually. Compact shelving. Who wants to talk to that?
I'm happy to talk about it briefly. So you may be aware that the library has automated compact shelving. So on some of our stack areas, we have a lot of material and shelving that opens and closes so you can fit 3 times the amount of material in the space that otherwise would have just one row of shelving. It no longer is working. And
It was a good idea 20 years ago.
Yeah, we bought it in '97. The companies that gave us the parts, they don't exist. The parts are hard to come by. We had asked about changing it to hand crank, but the rows are too long for the hand crank, so that would also require quite a bit. So as a summary point here, you can see that the cost estimates to fix this and remedy the problem are up to $5 million. And to put that in perspective, the Price Hill branch is almost about the same amount of money. So it does produce a problem that we need to face, and that is part of the reason Susan Kent was added to the lineup from our consultation folks from the Facilities Master Plan. We have a lot of material at the main library. She's looking at those reports right now, and we're going to have to engage with the Dayton model in some manner to resolve this issue of the moving shelves, unless we want to spend money on that kind of fix or offsite storage that would accommodate millions of, or hundreds of thousands of items. So we are trying to determine the best avenue forward. Susan will be talking with staff here at the main library during their trip to get some ideas on what we need to do, but it will require some work and some hard thinking. And I just wanted everyone to be aware, because occasionally when libraries have done this, and many libraries have had to do this, we have some users who don't quite understand why we're doing things with our material and not just keeping everything. So we'll keep you informed on that, but we wanted to make you aware and also give you those dollar figures so you understand that there's a real reason we're talking about doing that. And we also want to do it a little in advance of all the changes around the facilities so that people don't associate positive changes to our facilities with what they might perceive us doing things to the collection that they wonder why we're doing them if we're changing our facilities, if that makes sense.
Well, David talked about lowering the amount of books, et cetera, that we have here. And then you have to take that into consideration with your doing the shelving, too, right?
Absolutely, yes. And Dayton had a particular model. Tim, who spoke at the meeting when David came, he talked about how they had some retired staff who were familiar with the stack area come back and develop a criteria and look through the material so that everyone understood. Thought was given to it, but at some point you do have to address it. And this issue with the movable shelving, which our staff has coined the immovable shelving, has now kind of brought forward this question. So it's important that we be aware of that, and we'll keep.
So the low-hanging fruit is getting rid of duplicates right away.
Yeah, and we have a fair number of them as well.
Is
So
this a variety of different publications and books, or?
this is, Holbrook has been working on this with his team, the material retrieval team, who work in the stacks all the time.
Yeah, so there are a lot of bound newspapers, a lot of things that are accessible digitally now.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff is not used, but on occasion, there will be a volume that someone will ask for that's in a range among a lot of other volumes that we have to try to move the shelf just to get that one volume. So we've had some challenges, and the facilities has really kept up piecemeal, keeping those moving, but they're really breaking down into a way that they're just not going to be moving anymore.
I can't imagine it's safe either for personnel.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not ideal, yeah. So we have to use a two-person system because they often have to do the override key, and you want to make sure there's some safety. So it does require quite a bit of staffing. So we may end up moving those materials to places where, as Mr. Moran noted, we have duplicate copies we pulled off. Also remember, the stack area has never been reorganized the way that the floor here is in straight Dewey order. It's still in the old subject model. So we have never addressed the issue of reorganizing the stacks so that it makes sense to Holbrook staff who are trying to find the material. So we may or may not use this as an overall opportunity to look at some of those. So again, it may be a heavy lift in the short term, but in the long term, I don't know how Holbrook staff who are new to the library have no idea what education and religion ever was. They're walking through the stacks, looking at these areas that are arranged in a way that they don't, it requires an extensive amount of training for that work. So again, not that we want to do everything at one time, but I don't hear from the board a will to pay several $1 million
Yeah.
to fix the movable shelving. So
We
we're
got
going to
other
have to
things
do
on our
something.
plate.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, since I works in the library, researching opportunities to work together in a more focused manner. And somebody talk about branch groundskeeping services, because I drove by Clifton about 3 times in the past week, and finally, I think Saturday, grass got cut after it was a foot long.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, do you have anything to say, Jeff, or, we're working with them. I think last week they finally sent us the list of all the people we're gonna be providing at each location. We are also working with some other vendors to get somebody else in here. We'll have a resolution hopefully by mid-July. Working in this current manner is not gonna be a long-term solution.
So are they, do they do our snow removal as well?
They do.
Are they, are they,
Sidewalks.
okay, are they not self-performing that either?
No, we're gonna have to find something for this winter. Whether we're in-house or we go out and find other people to do it ourselves, I'm not sure yet what we're gonna do, but we're looking into it.
We'll end our contract with them, because we've met with them several times, trying to work with them, and they're not following through with the promises they've made.
Okay. Walnut Hills Branch project, the library is contracted with FTC&H to complete a preliminary design to determine the cost, estimate, and options to renovate the current facility. We hope to have the result by the end of June. Project planning, mechanical system at North Central Branch needs to be replaced. First estimate is a little under $600,000. We've engaged a firm to evaluate the building needs and determine the best solutions. Planned a recommendation at our August meeting. Distribution center renovations ongoing and hopefully operational October 1st. Energy retrofit, electrical contractors started construction, fire suppression contractor and HVAC contractor started the submittal phase. Those contractors plan to start site work next few weeks and will include demolition work. All work in the public areas will begin on the 3rd floor and done in phases with some partial public floor closures as needed. Project is expected to be completed by the end of January 2020. And the roof, as anybody who passed the building, the roof is ongoing.
I discovered you can go.
I make a motion to approve my report.
Do we have a Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved.
I discovered you can go all the way up on the elevator to the roof and then through a door and you're out on the roof.
You were gonna have to.
No, they had a roof crew that came up on the elevator with me, carrying all their equipment. I said, where are
We
you
have-
going? We're gonna go all the way up.
We have employees up there trying to get a tan while they're
No, they informed me they have a door with a key and they have the key.
It's true.
Next is the Human Resources Committee, Mrs. Allen.
Okay, the Human Resources Committee met on May 23rd, 2019. Committee members Nadine Allen and Elizabeth Amakia were in attendance. In addition to board president Robert G. Hendon and trustee William Moran were also in attendance, as well as staff members Paula Brent Hager and Kyla Hardin. And it is the recommendation of the committee that the board take the following actions. And at this meeting, Ms. Kyla Hardin was present, and she actually presented the report, and she's here today. She was, here she is. Yes. And she presented the report. The educational assistance policy, the library has been working to establish an educational assistance program that would provide meaningful support to our employees. Attached are the recommended policy and plan, which outline the benefits and eligibility for educational assistance for staff. It is recommended that the board approve the educational assistance policy, and that's attached on Exhibit 1, and the educational assistance plan, and that's also attached. Are we going to do that at the end of this report?
No, you don't have to read it, no.
We can approve it, we can take the vote at the end.
Okay, we'll do that. All right. Benefits renewal, the preparation for the 2020 renewal of medical and voluntary benefits has begun. This year, we will be inviting major medical carriers in to interview and submit quotes. A benefits task force of employees will be formed to offer transparency, understanding, and effective communication around this renewal process. EEOC charge dismissed in February 15, 2019. An EEOC charge filed by former employee Vicky Becker was received. A settlement has been agreed upon, and the EEOC charges will be dismissed. Hawksworth Blood Drive on May the 16th, 2019, the library hosted a blood donation drive to benefit the Hawksworth Blood Center. The drive generated strong interest, with 12 donors participating in this half-day event. Annual Staff and Retiree Recognition Program. Please save the date. This year's Annual Staff and Retiree Recognition Program will be held on Sunday, November the 10th, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. Attached are I think we've talked about this already, about the educational assistance policy.
Yeah.
Are you going to move for a vote on that?
Are you doing the policy and the plan? Is the plan done or is that a draft? So you're gonna approve the policy and the plan, so you're gonna move. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed.
Okay.
All right, consent items.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment? No public comment? Wow. Okay, move for adjournment. The next meeting will be held August the 13th at 4:30 at the main library.
Did we change it to 9?
No, we have not changed it.
So it's gonna be-
4:30 at this point.
At this
Okay.
point, but there's a possibility of changing it.
We can talk, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna consider changing the time of our meetings?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
And I do want to ask everyone to make sure we will have several committee meetings, so please pass along your forms to me before you leave, so we can try and schedule those this summer before August as well.
And if anybody has any questions for TC and HMS or on the project, they are here. Anybody who wants to ask some questions or some more information.
Okay.
We want you to do some value engineering.
I know. I did note to Monica that there was a big headline in the Enquirer about the cost of construction over the weekend, that, you know, it's a pricey endeavor at the moment. But they're happy to answer all your questions. And thank you to the board for, it's a long meeting today, and we have an active summer. I appreciate everybody's interest and engagement around all that we're doing.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned, everybody can go their own way. Is that right?
Is that day.
She has some dates.
That's an awesome gavel, whatever. What's that thing called? The thing that counts.